The final NFL game is in the books, and you know what that means. It's best ball time, baby. That's right. We got best ball drafts going on right now on Underdog Fantasy, going to be going on all off season, and I've done a draft or two, and you know what? There are some players that I cannot believe are being drafted as high as they are in these early drafts. These are 5 players that I think are going to be absolute traps in 2026, and you need to avoid them. Now, real quick before I jump into those players, if you want to get in on the action on Underdog Fantasy and get in on some of these best ball drafts, go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure when you join using promo code ENDGAME, because not only is that going to get you a first-time deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash, but as soon as you play $5 on anything, you're going to get another $75 in bonus cash, win or lose. All right, I hate that I have to start this video with Malik Nabers, but I have to start this video with Malik Nabers. Now, right now he's going about pick 16, which I would say, look, if he was a fully healthy Malik Nabers would probably be an absolute steal, honestly. And even if I thought maybe he would be ready for the start of the season, I would think would probably be pretty good value. But we're looking at a guy coming off a major injury. Now, we first thought it was just an ACL injury, which definitely not a good thing for a player, especially a wide receiver. But you know, it's better than when there's multi-ligament tears, but we've now learned it was ACL and MCL, and this makes recovery much tougher. In fact, earlier on this year, when we saw Malik Nabers, he was still using a crutch, which means he doesn't have range of motion in that knee, and he was 8 weeks post-surgery at that point, which usually we're looking at 6 weeks post-surgery when you're starting to get range of motion back in that knee. So now I'm getting worried that there's a good chance we're not going to see Malik Nabers at the start of the season. In fact, one of the injury kind of experts I trust, a former NFL physician, had this to say about the Malik Nabers injury. This is Dr. David Chow, Pro Football Doc, said the reason he's using a crutch is because he doesn't yet have full motion in that knee, which leads me to believe he had a meniscus repair, which we now know he did, with suturing rather than a trim. That points to a more prolonged recovery. Then he goes on to explain, normally the first goal after ACL surgery is to regain full range of motion, ideally by 6 weeks. Malik Nabers is now 8 weeks out and still does not have full range of motion, likely because of the meniscus repair. So, and then he goes on to finally say, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the surgery, but what does that mean for his timeline? Everything gets pushed back. Nabers will not be ready for the start of the season. Book it. Okay, so there's a good chance that you're drafting Malik Nabers in round 2 and you're not going to have him to start the year. Which, look, that by itself, not really a huge deal. I mean, if he misses 2 or 3 weeks and then he came back and was like a stud wide receiver every week of the season, it'd be totally fine. But now I have worries beyond this because, again, we're talking about a guy coming off a major injury. He's probably not going to be fully back to 100% as soon as he gets back out there. There's going to be a ramp-up period. There's going to be a period where he's playing full snaps, but he's not the same guy. It takes a while. Usually that first year post-ACL is a struggle. But then there's the other big issue here, and that's the fact that the Giants hired Matt Nagy as the offensive coordinator. And then just to pile on, they hired Greg Roman in some kind of offensive job. They haven't given him a title. So we're looking at Matt Nagy and Greg Roman calling the offenses. Matt Nagy, the guy who just derailed the Chiefs offense for the last 2 years, made Patrick Mahomes somehow look mortal, is now going to be the guy running this offense for the Giants. So when you factor in that this is probably going to be a slow-paced, run-heavy, not exciting offense with a bad play caller in Matt Nagy and a Malik Nabers coming off a major knee injury. Look, I love Malik Nabers. He's an uber-talented guy. Last year, I said he could be one of the guys that finished as the overall wide receiver 1. Obviously, it didn't happen. He tore his ACL very early in the season. We'll never know. But man, this year, this just feels like a trap. This whole Giant situation, coming off a major knee injury. Unfortunately, Nabers in round 2 feels like a trap to me. And then I cannot believe TreVeyon Henderson is going inside the top 50 picks. Did nobody watch the Patriots down the stretch? Did you not see how they ended the season? Did you not see how they used the running backs in the postseason? It was mostly Rhamondre Stevenson. When you look at it from weeks 15 through weeks 18, Rhamondre Stevenson was back fully healthy. Rhamondre played 62% of the snaps. Now, technically, Henderson did have more carries over that stretch than Rhamondre. But here's what really scares me about TreVeyon Henderson going into 2026. they had no confidence in this guy in pass protection. He was brutal in pass protection. He only ran 23.5% of the routes down the stretch. And even in the postseason, that number was only at 25%. And that's because he ran like 36% of the routes in that blowout in the Super Bowl where they're like, screw pass protection. We need guys out here who can catch passes. This guy is an absolute liability in pass protection. Rhamondre Stevenson is still under contract. He's not going away. Why are they suddenly going to next year give the keys or hand the keys over to TreVeyon Henderson? Best case, we're looking at a 50-50 split here. And worst case, we're looking at what we saw from last year, which is when Rhamondre Stevenson is healthy, TreVeyon Henderson's value takes a major hit. Yet people are still drafting this guy inside the top 50 players. I don't understand it. Rhamondre is not going anywhere. You're going to need a Rhamondre injury for this pick to pay off, unfortunately. Hey, real quick before I get to the rest of the names on this list, you may not be aware of this yet, but we have a Dynasty channel. That's right, if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, you need to go check out Dynasty Endgame. That is our Dynasty only channel. We're putting out 2 to 3 videos a week right now. Go check it out and subscribe to the channel. We would greatly appreciate it. Now I'm going to be honest, I could pick almost any Bears pass catcher not named DJ Moore for this list. I went with Luther Burden, but you could also make a case for Colston Loveland, who's going inside the top 50 players. But Luther Burden going as pick 47. I get that he had like an okay finish to his rookie year, but this is a crowded pass catcher room. DJ Moore is still under contract. Rome Odunze is certainly not going to go anywhere. Colston Loveland, I just talked about, was an emerging tight end, emerged, down the stretch. You still got Cole Kmet there, and let's not forget, they were one of the best running offenses in the league. And if you go back to Ben Johnson's time in Detroit, they were also some of the best running offenses in the league. How is there going to be enough here in this passing game for Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, and Rome Odunze to all be top 60 picks? I'll give you the answer. There isn't. It's not going to happen. Will Luther Burden have some nice weeks? Sure. And I know somebody's going to comment down below, it's best ball, spike weeks. Yeah, but you don't want your top 50 guy to be a guy that only gets you 4 or 5 spike weeks. You're still banking on this guy being in your lineup more weeks than not, even in best ball. So I don't understand Luther Burden going this high. Plus, when you look at how strong he finished, it really wasn't that great. When you look at it from weeks 14 and on, which all those games, not counting the playoffs games, were without Rome Odunze, he only went over 14 PPR points one time over that stretch. And in the playoffs, he combined for just 6 catches and 68 yards total. It wasn't like this guy took over the offense or something. I like Luther Burden. I think Luther Burden could be a nice player. This is a crowded room here in a run-first offense. I just don't see how all 3 of these guys are going to pay off. I mean, honestly, the best value feels like DJ Moore. He's like barely inside the top 100 picks. I don't understand that, but man, these Bears pass catchers, in my opinion, are way overvalued in fantasy right now, and they feel like traps. And then how is Jalen Waddle going as a top 55 pick? Currently pick 53 right now. I mean, I guess he's the wide receiver 1 here. I mean, there's that, but there's not much else to like about this Dolphins offense. We know head coach Mike McDaniel, offensive guru, is gone. Last year, I was saying all in on Devon Achane, all in on Devon Achane. I got a ton of pushback on that, and he was awesome. But now, even I'm struggling to pull the trigger on Devon Achane because this offense is not going to be the same offense whatsoever. First of all, they hired the Packers defensive coordinator to be the head coach. That right there is a massive downgrade. The offensive coordinator is Bobby Slowick, who comes from that Houston Texans offensive juggernaut. And by juggernaut, I mean a horrible offense. Not to mention who is going to be the quarterback. I mean, we know it's not going to be Tua, which I know some people is going to be like, well, that's a benefit. Okay, that might be a benefit, but what are we looking at? Quinn Ewers, some, old washed up vet, some rookie who doesn't belong, starting NFL games this year because there's really only one rookie quarterback that probably should be starting NFL games this year, and he's going to go to the Raiders. I just can't get behind this Miami offense this year. I know people are going to, it's Miami. They've been fantasy goodness for so many years here, but things have changed for 2026. Drafting Jalen Waddle basically as a top 50 pick, I mean, barely outside the top 50 picks, feels like an absolute trap to me. And then finally, on our Dynasty channel, I have talked about how I think Quinshon Judkins is a massive sell high in Dynasty, and I think he's a huge, huge trap in 2026 fantasy drafts. Right now, going as pick 54. Let's start with like the obvious, everybody knows this. He's coming off an injury we haven't really seen from a running back before. A fractured fibula and a dislocated ankle. Now, shockingly, Cam Skattebo had the same injury, and I do think Cam Skattebo is probably a trap in 2026, as much as I do love Cam Skattebo, but I already talked about one Giant. I'm not going to talk about another one. But Quinshon Judkins coming off this injury. Now, the only real recent example we can even point to of this was Isaiah Pacheco a couple years ago when he fractured his fibula, tried to come back later that year, and looked absolutely terrible. And even last year, you can't tell me we are looking at the same Isaiah Pacheco. This is a tough injury for a running back. And then on top of it, we're going to add in a dislocated ankle. These are running backs need to make cuts. You need ankles to make cuts. This is absolutely 100% going to impact Judkins, even if he is healthy for week 1. But then let's talk about the other obvious thing here. He's on the Browns. He wasn't even good last year. I mean, yes, he started well. He had a couple nice games, but down the stretch, he was really, really bad. In the 14 games he played last year, he only finished as a top 20 running back 4 times because he's stuck on the Browns offense. I don't care that it's Todd Monken. I really don't care who they would have hired this year. It's the Browns. They have a proven track record that they don't know how to do it, and it's not going to change in 2026. It's going to be a terrible offense. I doubt the offensive line is going to be much better. Shedeur or whoever the QB is, probably not the answer. As much as I want Shedeur to be the guy and I want to root for this guy, I don't think he's the answer. This is a running back coming off a devastating injury in what will probably be one of the worst offenses in the NFL again. There just is not enough upside here to draft this guy inside the top 55 players. All right, there you go. You've been warned. Those are 5 traps you need to avoid in fantasy this year. And like I said, if you haven't checked out the Dynasty channel yet, go check it out, Dynasty Endgame. And if you haven't checked out the content we've been dropping for you this offseason, you can find it all on our playlist right here.